Good evening. This is Coach's Corner. I'm Brent Blunt, your host, here with Coach Heron of the Wildcats. Coach, another big win, Tiff County last Friday, 47-0, I believe. Cats keep rolling.
Well, it was a good win. It made us 3-0 in the region, and being able to shut out a Region 1 opponent and win by that margin, honestly, was kind of surprising. And told the kids at halftime, we hadn't played real well, but we were up by a lot, so I guess that's a good sign. And again, getting any region win is good at this particular point of the year. And I think Tiff County had some good players, and they're going to be a good football team in the future. They're kind of in a transition year right now, but our kids played well, and it was a part of that 3-game home stretch, and that was the middle game, and we were a little worried about us being down for that, but they came out and handled it pretty well.
Talk about some of the players that stood out. I know Calvez scored a couple touchdowns. Bryce threw the ball pretty well. I mean, were there anybody else really that kind of jumped out that had?
Well, Calvez took the opening play, and scored, which was a huge deal. Gave us a lot of momentum. But I thought our secondary and our linebackers and defensive line, really everybody on defense played very well. I mean, we got a shutout, and I don't think they had 100 yards of total offense on the night. So, defensively, I felt like we played very well. Offensively, we made a few mistakes in the first half, but we did have some big plays. And, I thought our line blocked very well, and, we were able to have a lot of yards ourselves. So, we did not kick the ball as well as we had in some of the other games, and we got to work on that. But, as far as a defensive performance, it was one of our better ones.
It seems in every year the key is always, especially as you get toward the end of the season, to be getting better each week. Trying to peak at the right time. A lot of teams peak early and fall off late. What do you do as a coach to try to pace them to where they're peaking at the right time, that we're getting better each week as we lead into playoffs?
Well, you never know exactly. Because there's more than one variable. You've got to peak physically. You got to peak mentally, and you kind of got to peak emotionally at the right time. And those three things are hard to all come together. And this year I feel like that we're having a more difficult time in judging how we're peaking physically, because we're having to work and put a lot more effort into our Friday nights than we have in years past. In years past, we could kind of point to the 10th game, the 11th game, and try to get them to their peak at that particular time. This year that hadn't been the case. We've got to be trying to be peaking almost every week. And, physically that's a challenge. Mentally it's a challenge, because, you're dealing with young men who have their mind on a whole lot more things than football. But emotionally it's also a challenge. And the emotional one is the one that scares me the most, because I can't control that one.
Sure.
Physically and mentally we can tell them what to do. Physically we can take care of them in practice at times and not take care of them at times, things like that. But the emotional part, they have to be ready to play. And as a coach, you can only do so much there. It's how they perceive the opponent sometimes. And our kids have handled that pretty well so far. But the sad part is we've got to be physically, mentally, and emotionally at a peak for 8 straight weeks now. And it's not going to happen. But what you got to hope is that the night that you're not, that you're at least good enough to overcome that.
I had a college football coach tell us, in our Bulldog Club meeting, the key to having a great team and winning championships is you have to have senior leadership. And he said at some point, the players tune out the coaches.
Oh, yeah.
And it's about players holding other players accountable. What kind of senior group do we have this year? I mean, do you feel like, I know we're, still have several games going in. Do you feel like we have that strong core group that's going to hold each other accountable and push each other?
Well, I think we're pretty good at it. We don't know yet,
right.
Because it hadn't gotten tough yet. These next 8 weeks will determine that. But, he's exactly right. As a coach, if you're having to yell and scream to motivate them, then eventually that's going to quit working. And if you and your coaching staff's got to motivate them every day, then eventually that's going to quit working. And there's going to be days that they have to have that inner motivation. And we have some good leaders on this team. But do they do that every day like I'd want them to? Not yet. But that's a growing and learning process too. And to win it all though, you have to have that. That's just part of the deal. And some teams do, and some teams don't. And unfortunately, that's part of it. Sometimes you can have enough talent that you can overcome that, but that's rare in high school football.
Looking, these next several weeks, we're really going to find out. You talked about physically. We're going to get some physical games coming down the stretch. We've got Brunswick coming up, Lowndes, Colquitt. We've got some tough games. I think you're going to get a pretty good read going into the playoffs. It's almost like a little mini playoffs leading into the playoffs.
Well, it is. I mean, we could lose these next 3 games and not make the playoffs.
Sure.
So we're fighting for the playoffs right now. But we have Brunswick coming up this Friday. Then we'll turn around and have to go to Lowndes and go to Colquitt, and all 3 of those teams are very good. And Brunswick presents a very unique set of problems. They're extremely good offensively. They had 546 yards last week against Colquitt. The week before, 530 something against Coffee. So they can move the ball, they can make you look bad, they can make you look silly, and that's going to be a heck of a challenge for us. Then you turn around, you got to go to Lowndes and play in an unbelievable atmosphere and all that, and deal with all that. And they're a very physical, just hit you in the mouth team. And then the last one, Colquitt, and they beat us last year. I don't need to say more about that. So we have a very, very tough 3-game stretch left. We've told our kids that we were off last week. That helps. But we've got 3 tough games, and then hopefully, I hope we don't have to limp too much, but you kind of limp into the playoffs and hope you can get them geared back up.
Sure. This Friday we've got Brunswick obviously here at home. Senior night, I believe. Isn't that right? Senior night. It's a big night since it's the last home game. Honor all the seniors. We've got quite a few seniors.
Yeah, we do. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but I think about 33 or 34, and a good group of kids. And it's always a pleasure to honor them. I was telling some people earlier there, I've never in my career had this happen where you have senior night and still have 2 games remaining. It's always been the last night or the next to last night. But we'll do that and have it 2 games from the end, and then move on from there. So hope everybody will come out. Brunswick historically has been one of Camden's biggest rivalries, and it's been several years since we've played them, but I know their folks are excited about it. I was up there watching the game the other night, and that's all I heard. We've been dodging them for 6 years, and now they're coming to town, so it should be fun.
Well, and then it's going. You would think with Brunswick being right up the road that it's going to be a big crowd, and people are going to need to show up early, not only for senior night, but to support everybody really with the team and stuff. So they're going to want to get in the stadium early.
Absolutely.
One last thing, I don't know if a lot of the people watching know, this week was a big week. Bryce Ramsey got honored, with the Under Armour. Talk a little bit about that.
He sure did. First for me as a coach, I never had one, that's been able to do that before. But Bryce was selected by the Under Armour All-American game as a participant, which makes him an All-American player. And they came to school and presented him with his jersey for the game, and had a little ceremony and stuff, and did a really nice job with it. And he'll be playing in that game. I think it's January the 4th in Disney World. So it's a big deal for him, and he's certainly very deserving of all that.
That's awesome. It's great for him. It's great for the program to have players doing that and bring some recognition to the program. So that's win-win for everybody. Well, Coach, hopefully we'll be sitting here next week with another big win. And looking forward to the final 2 games. Hope everybody will be able to come out and get in the seats early and support the Wildcats and help us get a big win against Brunswick.